to the Harbaugh brothers. They have had a lot of success at all levels of coaching. John entering his 18th NFL season. Jim his 6th. Jim has a better record. John, obviously, he's won all 3 head-to-head matchups, including that Super Bowl 47. It's not a surprise that the brothers grew up in a very competitive household. Take a listen.
Give me a story that illustrates their competitiveness, Jack.
That's interesting. There's so many of them.
On the front yard, we made a chicken wire goal, right? So we had these 4x4s. We put chicken wire around and put it right in front of our garage. And we had tennis balls, I think, right? And we had our hockey sticks. And we played hockey. And we would go one-on-one for hours. Knocked out every window.
My dad had this thing where you had to run down and he'd time you how fast you could get him a beer. You had to go all the way downstairs and come back up. So we're always trying to break the world record.
26 seconds is the all-time world record for getting up there and getting me a beer, making sure it's popped, close the refrigerator, and back down the stairs.
So the Bruins are playing, and they're playing the Blues.
And we're down in the basement, old shag rug. Remember the shag carpet? You just sink into the floor. We're on the floor. They're here, one on one arm and me on the other arm.
Like Dad goes, John, go down, get me a beer. Put you on the clock.
Not just a beer, though. I also did get cheese and crackers. I'm coming. I got the beer, I got the plate, I got the crackers, and I got the plate of cheese. And I'm like, oh my God! I hear him go, yeah! Oh my God, the greatest! Did you see that? I'm like, no, I didn't see it.
So while he's gone, Bobby Orr makes the flying goal.
Yeah, right.
He didn't see it.
Bobby Orr behind the net to Sanderson. Orr! Bobby Orr!
A dad of who my daughter plays with is a guy from Boston. He's laughing. He goes, I'm great friends with Bobby Orr. I'm going to tell him the story. I get a package in the mail. It's a picture, and it's the goal. It's Bobby Orr.
Which you never saw.
I never. It's the first time I actually saw it. And he writes the description. He goes, John, forget the cheese and crackers. Bobby Orr. Great advice.
You guys, if you want to watch the entirety of that, it's on YouTube. It won an Emmy. It's just so good. All right, let's talk about the Ravens. Lamar Jackson set career highs in nearly every passing stat. He made history, became the first player ever with at least 40 touchdown passes, fewer than 5 picks in a season. Just remarkable. First player ever with 4,000 passing yards and 800 rushing yards. He easily could have won the MVP as well. At tight end U, earlier this week, the Ravens' Isaiah Likely, he told Dan and Laura that he thinks Lamar is even better this year.
One quick thing on Lamar. How's he been so far from what you've seen from him?
Man, I feel like Lamar gets better every year. Every year.
Everyone says that. You're like, how?
But like that's really the main focal point for him to understand that, like, you know, as well as everybody is coming back in the offseason, I mean, it's obviously hard to, tell you guys Lamar's getting better every year because he does magical things with the ball in his hand. But, for him, it's always like, okay, why did I lose? Why have I not got over, like you guys said, the hump? So really him coming back with the vengeance on, trying to take that next step to have that Lombardi in his hands. And I feel like this is the best he's looked since I've been here.
Graz, he's only 3-5 in the playoffs, coming off that disappointing loss, a couple of turnovers. So that's Lamar. But who else needs to step up on that offense?
And I think they're looking for really big things from wide receiver Zay Flowers, who was their first-round pick just 2 years ago. Went over 1,000 yards last year, had a good year. But remember, he had a knee injury that he suffered in their regular season finale, and he was unable to play in their 2 playoff games. They really felt like not having him that day in Buffalo hampered them, and the hope obviously is that he stays healthy and continues his ascent in terms of productivity. They brought in DeAndre Hopkins, a veteran wide receiver who was extremely helpful to Xavier Worthy and other young receivers on the Chiefs when he spent the second half of the season with them last year. They're hoping he can also help Zay Flowers' game blossom, to use a term that might apply to Zay Flowers.
You've been up all day, and you came through with that. Really, that was impressive. Okay, yes, Field.
Yeah. I'll give you another likely candidate to take a big leap this year. Isaiah Likely. I see you, Graz. I match you, Graz.
Wow, you guys are on fire.
I I think there's a chance. I'm not sure it's likely, super likely, perhaps likely. Don't know how to classify it. I'm no Adam Schefter, but I do think that Isaiah Likely has a chance to get an extension done before this regular season begins. And some people might be saying, well, Mark Andrews is still there. Are you really going to reinvest or make another investment in a tight end? It would sort of remind me, and I know Graz will recall this, an AFC North cut from a few years ago of when the Browns had Austin Hooper in the second year of what was at the time the richest contract for a tight end in NFL history. Then they paid David Njoku, who to that point had never had a monster season. He has become an outstanding player for the Browns, a leader and an indispensable part of the passing game. I think there's a chance that we're talking about Isaiah Likely as one of the 8 or 10 best tight ends in football in the next couple of years. He's got all the talent in the world, but the Ravens don't throw the football as much as other offenses do. And of course, Mark Andrews is still there. I think at some point we see that segue, and Isaiah Likely becomes a part of an offense that defensive coordinators begin the week and they say, we have to find a way to slow down Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, but Isaiah Likely is not that far down the pecking order of responsibilities.
Yeah, the Ravens obviously see him as a big part of the future of their offense. The contract extension I'm watching out for, Field, is Lamar Jackson. Now, I know he just signed a couple of years ago, but if you look at the way this contract is structured, his salary cap number in 2026 goes up to $74.5 million. So the Ravens have some incentive to at least have a discussion. And the quarterback market has sailed past Lamar Jackson in the couple of years since he signed his extension as well. So he may be looking, much like Josh Allen did earlier this offseason, at doing something that brings his number more in line with the very top guys. None of those guys in front of him, except potentially Patrick Mahomes, have won a couple MVP awards.
Yeah, let's pivot to Jim Harbaugh and his Chargers, shall we? They went 11-6 last season. They're first under the younger Harbaugh brother, but they were one and done in the playoffs. Remember, they lost by 20 to the Texans, and Justin Herbert had a horrific game. He threw 4 picks. After throwing 3 the entirety of the regular season, it was an absolute disaster. Field, what do you think the ceiling is for this team this season? Now it's year 2 with Herbert and Harbaugh.
Yeah, Hannah, there's a part of me that always defers to treating the Chiefs like a heavyweight boxing champion where you want to be a round too late rather than a round too early to discount them. So I don't think the Chiefs are not going to win the AFC West this year, but I think the Chargers have a chance to get to the top of that division if some things break right. And you hear coaches talk all the time about how players often make their biggest leap from year 1 to year 2. When you're a rookie, you're onboarding so much information, the playbook, like the name of your teammates and your coaches, things that go beyond the X's and the O's. In year 2, you have a chance to really thrive when you're more comfortable. I think the Chargers might have some of that same dynamic in play with year 2 of Jim Harbaugh and his staff and how they want to play the game. If you look back at Jim Harbaugh's various stops as a head coach at both the college and the pro level, University of San Diego, I get it, it's not the LA Chargers, big leap from year 1 to year 2. You go to the San Francisco 49ers. They were great in the first year under Jim Harbaugh, but in year 2, they made it all the way to the Super Bowl, where, of course, they played against John Harbaugh's Ravens. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see a big leap from the Chargers like we have seen players make that year 1 to year 2 leap.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And their training camp is going to be fun to watch. I think, Field, they might lead the league in position battles heading into training camp. They're looking to figure out who their 2 starting outside corners are going to be. They're looking to see who their 2 starting outside wide receivers are going to be to augment the great slot receiver that they have, Ladd McConkey. They're having competitions at left guard and at center. This is, Joe Ortiz, their GM, and Jim Harbaugh, their head coach, believe that in kind of a play the percentages element of roster building. Let's bring some talented guys in, have them compete with each other, and that'll get the best out of everyone and produce the best possible starting lineup and frankly, bench. So Chargers are building in a very specific way, and they were maybe a year early making the playoffs last year, so definitely dangerous to watch how that all comes together.